So, good evening everyone. So, akong report is continuation ni siya sa report ni Mylene sa Foundation of Curriculum. And then, sa Foundation of Curriculum, she discusses about the philosophical foundation, which is to help determine the driving purpose of education as well as the roles of various participants. Also, she tackles about historical foundation, which is about past events which have led to present trends of education. So my topic is all about psychological foundation of curriculum. So, psychological foundation of curriculum, it emphasizes the organization of ideas which assess students in developing the skills to identify relationship, improving their skills, remembering and retrieving old ideas, and it provides a foundation for generating new ideas and concepts and aids in the transfer of learning. So, this is more based on the individual differences of every students or learners. So, ang psychology kay naghatag og basihan og process sa pagtudlo. So, it unifies elements of the learning process. Questions which can be addressed by psychological foundation of education are: how should curriculum be organized to enhance learning? What is the optimal level of students' participation in learning the various contents of curriculum? So, in this module, we shall consider the three groups of learning theories: the behaviorism or association theories, the cognitive information processing theories, and the humanistic theories. So, let us review some theories in learning related to these clusters of learning theories. So, first is association and behaviorism. So, Ivan Pavlov was a Russian Soviet experimental neurologist, psychologist, and physiologist known for his discovery of classical conditioning through his experiments with dogs. So he is the father of classical conditioning theory, the SR theory. So classical conditioning is a type of unconscious or automatic learning. So this learning process creates a conditioned response through association between an unconditioned stimulus and a neutral stimulus. So the case to learning is early years of life is to train them what you want them to become. So the SR theories is a foundation of learning practice called indoctrination. So Pavlov suggested that salvation was a learned response. So next is Edward Thorndike. So Edward Thorndike was an American psychologist who spent nearly his entire career at Teachers College, Columbia University. His work on comparative psychology and the learning process led to the theory of connectionism and helped lay the scientific foundation of educational psychology. So his focus was on behaviorism. So this started as a result of asking the question, can animal think? So Thorndike introduced the use of animals and humans in controlled settings to test and prove or disapprove theories that predicted behavior. So Edward Thorndike championed the connection theory. Then he also proposed the three laws of learning, which is the law of readiness, the law of exercise, and the law of effect. Then specific stimulus has specific response means that he believed that all learning depend on the strength of the relationship between the stimulus and the response. So if that relationship was strong, the response was likely to occur when the stimulus was presented. Next is Robert Gagne. Robert Gagne was an American educational psychologist best known for his conditions of learning. He pioneered the science of instruction during World War II when he worked at the Army Air Corps training pilots. So he proposed the hierarchical learning theory. So based on him, learning follow as hierarchy. Gagne suggests that learning tasks for intellectual skills can be organized in a hierarchy according to complexity. So stimulus recognition, response generation, produce following, a procedure following, use, terminology, discrimination, concept formation, role application, and problem solving. So Gagne identifies five major categories of learning. Like verbal information, intellectual skills, cognitive strategies, motor skills, and attitudes. So he said that behavior is based on prerequisite condition. He also introduced tasking in the formulation of objectives. So next is cognitive information processing theory. So Jean Piaget. So we are very familiar with Jean Piaget because of his cognitive development theory nga about how children think, explore, and figure things out. So cognitive development has stages from birth to maturity. So when a child ages 0 to 2 months, ang kana siya nga stage kay matawag og sensory motor stage. Then kung 2 to 7 months kay pre-operational stage ang tawag ana. Then next is 7 to 11 months kay concrete operational stage, and lastly kung 11 to onwards kay matawag na siya formal operation stage. So his theory focuses not only on understanding how children acquire knowledge but also on understanding the nature of intelligence. So, the case to learning is assimilation, which is ang pag-interpret sa new information within the framework of existing knowledge. The next is accommodation, is ang paghimo og gamay nga changes to that knowledge in order to cope with things that don't fit those existing framework. And lastly, the equilibration, the balance between previous and the latter learning. So next is Lev Vygotsky. Lev Vygotsky was a Soviet psychologist known for his work on psychological development in children. He published on a diverse range of subjects and from multiple views as his perspective changed over the years. Among his students with Alexander Luria and Kharkiv School of Psychology. So the theories of Lev Vygotsky, the cultural transmission and developmental stage. So children could, as a result of their interaction with society, actually perform certain cognitive actions prior to arriving at developmental stage. Next is learning precedes development and sociocultural development theory. So, the case to learning. Pedagogy creates learning process that leads to development. Then the child is an active agent in his or her educational process. So, he rejected the assumption made by Piaget that it was possible to separate learning from its social context. According to Vygotsky, for the curriculum to be developmentally appropriate, the teacher must plan activities that encompasses not only what children are capable of doing on their own, but what they can learn with the help of others. And this was supported by Kharkov and Highwood in 1998. So next is Howard Gardner. So Howard Gardner is an American developmental psychologist and the John H. and Elizabeth A. Hobbs Research Professor of Cognition and Education at the Harvard Graduate School of Education at Harvard University. So, Gardner's multiple intelligence. Humans have several different ways of processing information, and these are relatively independent of one another. So, and there are 8 intelligences based on Howard Gardner: the linguistic, logico-mathematical, musical, spatial, bodily kinesthetic, interpersonal, and intrapersonal. And so Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences proposes that people are not born with all of the intelligence they will ever have. So this theory challenged the traditional notion that there is one single type of intelligence, sometimes known as G for general intelligence, that only focuses on cognitive abilities. So, mao ni siya ang 8 intelligences ni Howard Gardner. So, first is naturalist. So, understanding living things and reading nature. So, mao ni sila ang mga tao nga hilig og mga tanom or sa nature. Next is spatial, visualizing the world in 3D. So, one example ani kay kanang mahilig sa arts. The next is linguistic, finding the right words to express what you mean. So, mo ni sila ang mga tao nga kanang ganing hilig kayo sila mo kanang nindot kay sila mo kuan ba sa mo pronounce, like ang ma-example nato ni kay mga politiko. So next is intrapersonal, understanding yourself, what you feel and what you want. So mo ni sila ang mga tao nga matawag natog introvert, kanang naagan sila own world, kanang sila ray makakuan silang own kaugalingon. Next is bodily kinesthetic, coordinating your mind with your body. So mo ni sila ang mga tao nga kanang makuan na to nga hilig sa sports, like kanang mga activities nga kuan ba ma-connection pod sa sports. Next is musical, discerning sounds, their pitch, tone, rhythm, and timbre. So, obvious naman jud kayo ang musicals kanang mga tao nga hilig sa music. Then next is logical mathematical, quantifying things, making hypotheses, and proving them. So, mo ni sila ang mga tao nga kanang hilig mag-solve og math, like sa toa, char. Next is interpersonal, sensing people's feeling and motives. So, opposite ni siya sa intrapersonal. Kaning interpersonal kay kanang hilig sila makighalubilo sa mga tao, like mo ni sila ang mga extroverts. So next is Daniel Goleman. So Daniel Goleman is an author, psychologist, and science journalist. For 12 years, he wrote for the New York Times, reporting on the brain and behavioral sciences. While Howard Gardner focuses on his multiple intelligence theory, si Daniel Goleman kay ga-focus siya sa ihang emotional intelligence theory. So, he said that emotion contains the power to affect action, and he also called this emotional quotient. So, Daniel Goleman's emotional intelligence theory outlines 5 components of emotional quotients: the self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, empathy, and social skills. So, emotional intelligence can be applied to meet goals and targets, as well as create a happier and healthier working culture. So, as an overall view, the psychological foundation is based on individual differences. So, each student has a distinct personality that differs in their learning skills. So, because of they are different in nature, they cannot be treated similarly in the teaching learning process. Some may be fast learners while others are not. So, as a result, The curriculum should be based on the facts stated above, and it should be designed to support the capacities and potentialities of all students.